Let me see you.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Mikado Proving Grounds Rev2 episode number 1. Today I am coming to you from Hong Kong, where I'm actually visiting the Scorpion headquarters. Which is also fitting because I'm going to be talking about a very cool new and innovative product from them. And that is the Scorpion Tribunus 200 amp ESC. So this is a 14 SCSC, like I said, 200 amp. It has a built-in high voltage BEC as well as full integrated telemetry. Now they squeezed all this tech into a super small and compact platform that is also super light. This ESC, after I cut all the wires to my proper length, is sitting at about 7 ounces, which is about 3 ounces less than anything else out on the market. Additionally, because of the BEC, I also dished my flight pack, which saved another 3 ounces. So as it sits now, my model's sitting about 6 or 7 ounces lighter with a more capable ESC. So I'm happy. So if you want to learn about the ESC's basic functions and programming, Bobby Watts made a really good video and the link is below in the description, so go check that out. But what I'm going to be focusing on is more of the integration between the Scorpion Tribunus ESCs and the Mikado V-Bar control radio. Now, notice I said ESCs. That is because not only is there the 200 amp Tribunus, there's also a 120 amp 6S Tribunus, which is great for your smaller helis like a Logo 550 or Logo 480 or whatever you choose to fly. The thing that is most impressive about this ESC is the fact that it is fully integrated into the Mikado V-Bar control system. So not only do you have access to all your telemetry data like ESC temp, battery voltage, capacity used, things like that, but you can actually program the ESC from the radio. And the ESC comes out of the box set up to do this, so you don't have to hook it up to a computer or anything. The first step is going to be simply mounting your ESC and cutting your wires to all your length, getting your connectors on, things like that, which I've already done. So once you have your ESC mounted and your wires cut and your connectors on, we need to hook up all the cabling. So there's 3 cables we're going to hook up. There's the main master cable, which provides signal and BEC power to the V-bar. That plugs into your ESC port. There is the slave cable, which also gives BEC power to the V-bar, but it also transmits the RPM of the ESC. So that plugs into the RPM port of your V-bar. The third cable is kind of the communications cable for data between the V-Bar Neo and the ESC. Now this cable is available from Mikado and the link is below, but it's simply just a cable that plugs into the satellite port of your V-Bar and then also into the ESC. Now you can either hook this cable up directly from the ESC to the satellite port, but one option that I want to point out to you if you're using another one of Mikado's telemetry items, such as the battery ID like me, you can daisy chain these telemetry things together. So I have the cable going from the ESC to the battery ID module, and then just one cable going from the battery ID module into one of the satellite ports. Helps keeps your wires nice and clean, and is just a really nice closed loop system. So one important thing I want to point out, this ability to program the ESC directly from the radio is only made possible because of the new hardware technology of the V-Bar Neo. If you have an older V-Bar, a standard or a mini, you can't program the ESC from the radio directly, but you still have access to all the telemetry values. But luckily, the ESC comes programmed out of the box to work with the V-Bar governor and the V-Bar communications protocol. So you don't even need to plug it in to the computer unless you want to adjust your BEC voltage or your motor direction. So at this point we have the ESC all mounted up, all the cabling is run properly. The next step involves your V-Bar control. So I'll grab my very bright and green radio. Now what we have to do to the radio is simply load the Scorpion app onto it. So if you're a Mikado user, you know how to do this already. You simply plug the radio in, go to the applications, load the Scorpion app, and then you're good to go. So at this point, before we actually apply power to the ESC, it's a good idea as always to take your blades off. So then we can apply power to the ESC. You'll hear the stereotypical Morse code initialization. So on my radio I have the battery ID hooked up, and now if you have the Scorpion app loaded properly and you have all the cabling hooked up properly as well, you will see a little Scorpion icon in your radio. Now this lets you know that the ESC is actually talking with the V-bar. So if this is your first time using the V-bar governor or your Tribunus ESC in general, we're going to want to make sure all our parameters are set up properly for the governor. And the easiest way to do this is to simply go into the setup, go to Model Setup, scroll down to Governor, click on Governor Mode. Now here it will pull up a page that is specific to the Scorpion Tribunus 14S ESC because it knows that that's what ESC is being used. Here all we have to do is set which BEC voltage. I use about 7.3. We exit here. The ESC will reset, kind of re-establishing all the values. That is the setup procedure if you're running the Pro software. If you're running Express software, you go in the same to Model Setup, but then you just go to Setup Tools, Edit Heli Wizard, then you scroll through the Heli Wizard until you get to the ESC setup page, and here we have that same page where we can set the same information. And then from here we can go on with the setup. So after we've done the setup, we're going to go in and adjust more of the specific ESC parameters. So to do that, we go into our menu, we scroll all the way down to Application Setup, scroll down to Scorpion ESC. So here we have access to all of the information from the ESC, the telemetry, the status, the current values, things like that. But I'm not going to go over that stuff now. I'm going to go over those more advanced topics in another video that I'll make. But right now I'm just going to go over the parameters you need to get yourself in the air to make it simple. So what we need to focus on is in ESC settings, we go to General. Now here you can set your BEC voltage. You have a wide range of values. I normally settle in on the 7.3 volt. And then you can also set the direction of the motor. So if you have your wires all done already but your motor's backwards, no problem, just reverse it here. So those are the only basic values you're going to need to adjust to get your model in the air. You notice when you make a change to something, there'll be this little recycle button pop up on your screen. Now what that means is you have to exit this page, then scroll down to the bottom of this tab and hit Store. Now when you do this, it'll kind of reset the ESC, reinitialize it, you'll hear the beeps again. That is all you need to know about programming the ESC to get your model up in the air. Before you actually fly it, it's a good idea to check certain things like the BEC and your servos, make sure everything is working properly. For this test, all I do is simply just move the collective stick up and down really fast, make sure the servos aren't feeding back anything, load the servos up a lot by pulling and pushing on it, make sure that's not overloading the BEC. You shouldn't have any problems with it. It's a very powerful BEC, but of course, it's a good idea to check. Also, I'm going to show you guys just kind of a normal bench run up, just to make sure that the direction's right, and also make sure that the battery capacity tracking is working properly. So here we go with the run up.
Use 4 milliampere hours. Battery voltage 48%.
So what we'll look at first is to make sure that the RPM is actually being read on the screen, proving that the RPM sensor is working. And when you change RPMs, the RPM changes accordingly. Now I'm going to speed up the video so that you can see that as the motor's running over the time, this battery tracking is actually going down as capacity is used.
Battery voltage 47.2 volts.
Alright, so you can see it runs, the battery milliamp counter is working properly, so at this point you should be ready to fly. I hope you found this video informative, and I hope that it really helped you set up your ESC and get your model in the air. Like I said, I'm going to make another video about more of the advanced settings of the ESC and the radio, access to the telemetry, setting off cutoff warnings, things like that. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.